the uncertainty that higher taxes, more regulation on our job creators here in the United States of America. And one of the things we've been focusing in on for some time now is creating certainty and environment where our job creators here, not only in the state of Illinois, but throughout the United States of America, are able to put people back to work and grow and expand a business. So one of the things that's nice is this district is a little bit more compact than the current district I represent. Manufacturing, I come from a manufacturing background. We've already brought on, as a shared employee, Don Manzullo's key staffer to help us hit the ground running after the election. And we're just looking forward to help Rockford create more jobs and get this environment turned around.
One thing I'd like to mention, it sounds like we're yelling at you, is because we don't have mics. And we're hoping that,
We won't take it personally then.
well, as we were told in session Monday, as politicians, you're used to being yelled at. So we're going to be a little bit louder than normal. Questions could come from anyone at the table.
Do you mind? May I react a little bit to that? Is that going out of order in any?
No, there's no.
All right. Since we don't have the rules on this, I guess I'd like to address just what Congressman Schilling talked about. What we do in Washington, I think you said it word for word like this, is create certainty. I'd like to talk about that for a little bit. When I first started running for this race, we started out on day one. We had a job creation plan. And then we talked about number 2 and 3 were to make sure that we focus on the importance of preserving and protecting Medicare and Social Security. So that was our framework, how we started this. What emerged very soon as I was out and about in this 14-county district and talking to folks was that how disgusted they were with the political gridlock, how it was constantly gridlock over getting things done in Washington. I would argue just the opposite. What you're doing in Washington is anything but creating certainty. It's creating uncertainty, and if I may talk about a few of the areas where the uncertainty is just has risen to such a level that the business community doesn't even know how to react. With the transportation bill, traditionally, long time, bipartisan support for this. 5-year transportation bills, where contractors who need to fix our roads and our bridges know what to count on, know what to bid on, know what to plan for in their future. The Ag Bill. My opponent, Congressman Bobby Schilling, sits on the Ag Committee. We've just lived through one of the worst droughts in a generation, and yet we couldn't even, as Congress, get the Farm Bill moving forward. We have many personal and very 17th Congressional District specific examples. The I-74 bridge, critical, couldn't get that moved. And I'm hoping that we'll have a little dialogue in a bit, but I'll just raise it right now. The Thompson Prison, ultimate gridlock, has led to the fact that we could have $200 million a year in economic impact in a community that is hurting in a major way, and have 1,100 new jobs start like that. But that was held up in Congress. So I would argue, Mr. Schilling, that you don't create certainty, you're creating uncertainty.
And I'd like to respond to that. What my opponent fails to remember is that since 2009, the Democratic-held House, Senate, and presidency at the White House ran 9 extensions from 2009 up until the 112th Congress got there. We actually got a 2-year. I continued to push for a 5-year because we're looking for exactly that. It's what we call certainty. Another thing we got through was a FAA bill, which actually a 4-year bill, which was running on extensions. So when we talk about uncertainty, here's what the American people don't want, is they don't want a complete takeover of Washington, D.C. by one side with no checks and balances and pushing things through against the will of the American people. For example, the one bill that was pushed through behind closed doors with special deals for special states was the Affordable Health Care Act. What we should have been doing there is, in the American way, is sitting down, having debate, allowing both sides to come to the floor with amendments. This House, this Congress has actually opened the floor back up for amendments so the American people's voice could be heard. There's 435 of us in Washington, D.C., and the fact of the matter is we all carry a voice of our district. And it's un-American for anybody in Washington, D.C. to shut our voice down. I also pushed for getting this farm bill to the floor. Look, we're an ag community. We've got John Deere, Cat, we've got lots of farmers out there who are hurting, and we need to make darn sure that they have the certainty out there so that when they go to buy equipment or seed for next year, they can do that. And, it's too bad we couldn't get to the floor. What happens is we end up with extremes on both sides of the aisle. The far left, this is a bipartisan bill, 35-11, that passed through the Ag Committee. Not every piece of that bill was perfect, but we can't get perfect. What we have to do is find some middle road. There's going to be something in every bill that you can find that you don't like, but it's about getting things done and pushing things through. And unfortunately, we weren't able to get that done. You want to talk about dysfunction. Look at the United States Senate. We have over 30 jobs bills sitting in the Senate today with really a lack of leadership in the Senate. And the one thing is the farmers are looking for some drought assistance stuck in the Senate. No budget for 1,200 days. The Senate's unwilling to work with the American people. They'd rather politicize everything than get things done.
Let's take one issue at a time here. What about the Thompson? Are we going to see that thing open in our lifetime?
I have been fighting tooth and nail. I have had several meetings with Congressman Wolf to get this prison open. I've worked with Mr. Kirk. I've worked with Mr. Durbin, talked to him several times, went to leadership. As soon as it's a bipartisan reason as to why Thompson isn't open. If you really stop and reflect, think about this for a minute. In 2009, when the Democrats held the House, the Senate, the presidency, they couldn't open it. And then what happens is we have the governor of Illinois add TAMS to the plate, and then we have a bipartisan effort from Alabama telling the folks in D.C., look, rather than open up this prison, you need to open up our prison here in Alabama. I will not yield on opening Thompson. I've been to Pekin Prison. It's 170% overcapacity. And what we have to do is take the overcapacity and open up this prison. It makes no sense whatsoever. The reason Wolf is so upset and we cannot get him to bend, and people talk about camping out in front of offices and things. Look, I've been to his office and I've talked till I was blue in the face. But the fact of the matter is what happened is this administration really ruined his trust. And what they did was they promised him, the Department of Justice and the President of the United States promised him that they would not bring any of the detainees here to the United States of America. And what happened was they tried to sneak 3 of the Uyghurs, who are Al-Qaeda trained terrorists, into Mr. Wolf's office. And that's sad that they did that, and he holds a grudge on that. And, I've been working, and, I've even brought Dave Loebsack on a bipartisan fashion to try to help him, have him help me, because this will also give him a lot of jobs in his area. Sherry's exactly right. It's like $202 million of indirect and direct impact to the economy. My concern is what's going to happen is because of the dysfunction of Illinois. I mean, why would you build a $140 million project with no ways or means to open it up? And what I'm concerned is last year we spent $804,000 turning light switch on and off and flushing toilets. My concern is what's going to happen is it's going to sit vacant for another 10 or 20 years, and then we're going to end up tearing it down. So I'm willing to work with anybody across the aisle, on my side of the aisle, and do everything within my means to get this thing open.
I can tell you under my watch, it's not going to be closed for another 10 or 20 years. Not going to happen. I'll tell you that right now.
Why do you think you have success when the key roadblock is a member of Mr. Schilling's party? How would you be able to communicate with him to get the thing open?
Well, first of all, let's look at the whole issue. And hats off to the Rockford Register-Star and Chuck Sweeney in particular for pointing out the facts that are involved in this Thompson prison controversy. Chuck, I believe you called it a phantom controversy. I believe those were your words in your comment, in your column, as it pertains to the Guantanamo Bay prisoners. My opponent, Congressman Bobby Schilling here, voted to block the Thompson prison opening initially because of that phantom controversy. That was solved. There's been a pledge that there's not going to be Gitmo prisoners brought to this prison. That has been solved. It's been put to rest, and I applaud you for pointing that out. Here's the other thing. My opponent also proposed offering the state of Illinois a reduced price, cutting it by about another additional $100 million. This price that the federal government has agreed to pay, $165 million, has all been agreed upon. It's all been vetted. All parties agreed upon this. And then my opponent comes back and says, we want to knock another $100 million off at a time when the state of Illinois is cutting programs drastically and hurting people, whether it's education or Medicaid, and yet he wants to rip off the taxpayer another $100 million. What would I do, Wally? Here's what I do. First of all, this gridlock where members of one party can't work with another, it's got to go away. And I hope beyond hope that the residents of the 17th Congressional District will understand the importance of electing somebody who understands the importance of working together. I also hope that the American public understands that people who have been voted in on a Tea Party platform and have pledged basically not to move this country forward, I hope that the American public sees that that's been very destructive to our government, to our nation. But I will work until that thing is open. I know there are movements going on right now with Senator Durbin, where he's trying to figure out, is there a way to work around the congressman from Virginia who's blocking this? And I can tell you that if there's a way to work around that, then it needs to be worked around. But it's unacceptable at a time where we have unemployment like we do and not get a prison open that has a $200 million a year economic impact. It's just too critical for our region.
I want to throw something in because it wasn't anything about ripping off the Illinois taxpayer. What it is it's about common sense. It's about a prison that's sitting vacant and putting all options on the table, because if the taxpayer takes a look at the economic impact of opening this prison up, it would be huge. It would pay for itself. Even if the state were to give it away, it doesn't matter. The fact is we've got to get this thing open. We've got to put people back to work. It's 1,100 jobs. What we're willing to do, like some people aren't willing to do, is put all options on the table. We're talking 165 million bucks, and the fact of the matter is the federal government is broke. We're $16 trillion in debt, $1 trillion deficits year in, year out. We've got to put all options. I'm willing to look at anything to get this prison open to be forward.
We could. I'd rather not. I'd like to go back to manufacturing.
My bad.
Your opening remarks, you mentioned. I know Ms. Bustos. Why don't you start with your idea, and maybe Mr. Schilling will talk about your ideas for manufacturing, which is still
You bet.
23% of the employment in the Rockford Valley.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've had very encouraging news lately out of Winnebago County, and that's exciting. And it plays very well into what we've been talking about in our campaign. We've branded it as what we call the manufacturing triangle. And a couple of you have heard some of these details, a couple of you have not yet. But we've branded it that way because of the geographic nature of the new 17th Congressional District. We have Rockford to the northern part of our district. We have Peoria to the south and eastern portion, and then we have the Quad Cities to the western portion. So we've already have, in our 17th Congressional District, we have the world headquarters of John Deere. We have the world headquarters of Caterpillar. And we have major aerospace manufacturing in Rockford, along with a Chrysler plant that had been down to 200 jobs, now up to 4,700 jobs working 3 shifts. So we've already got that foundation in place. We also have an unbelievable community college environment and a higher education environment. We have infrastructure that's in place, although crumbling, and certainly we need some investment in that. And then we also have what I would argue is an unparalleled Midwestern work ethic. I'd put our workers up against any workers any place in the country, any place in the world. So we already have that in place. Now, what do we need to do? We need to make sure that we have tax policies that incentivize manufacturers to keep jobs here. Outsourcing has become a high-profile issue, and not just in this race that I'm part of, but also in the president's race as well. And the reason that's so important is because we've got an unemployment problem, and we have jobs now that can't be filled because of the training that's necessary. We need to make sure that we're partnering education with manufacturers, and I think we're moving in the right direction in many different areas. But we have to make sure that the manufacturers are incentivized to keep the jobs here. I am very pro-trade. I am just